The Easter Bunny. When I was younger, I used to live by the woods and could see a cemetery from my back porch. One Easter I remember waking up and seeing the Easter Bunny, one of those terrifying costumes, and what really gets me is I remember smelling the wet hay. When I woke up I didn't tell anyone, but there was an extra Easter egg in my house that my parents didn't hide. Years later when I was in high school I asked my parents if they ever dressed up like the Easter Bunny and came into our room. They said they would never go through so much trouble. Then my younger sister, who I shared a bunk bed with when this happened, said she remembers when the Easter Bunny came into our room and made a remark about the hay smell. I was terrified that we both remembered seeing a person dressed as a bunny in our room. To make it even stranger, I told the friends I sat with at lunch what happened. One of the girls was my neighbor across the street. She told me one Easter a long time she looked out her window during the night and saw the Easter Bunny standing in her driveway. I had chills. To this day I am terrified of people in rabbit costumes. Bowling alley creep. I've read a lot of terrifying stories on here and just thought I'd contribute something that happened when I was a child. It's not as bad as some, but even now over 20 years later it still sticks with me. When I was around 10 my parents belonged to a local bowling team and sometimes they'd take my siblings and I along to the bowling alley to go watch. This particular night happened to be the night before Easter. My younger brother and I decided to grab a bowling ball and sit in a carpeted walkway and just roll it back and forth because we were bored. While we were doing that, a man approached and started talking to us. He seemed nice at first, just asking simple questions like how are you doing and are you excited for the Easter Bunny and getting lots of candy, etc. I didn't think anything of it so I just answered his questions politely. Then out of the blue, the guy whispered to me, "I know where you live. I'm like the Easter Bunny but instead of candy I'm going to come in your house and kill you and your family." He rambled on basically repeating that over and over and stuff about it being our last night to live. I just remember looking at the man speechless and then getting up and grabbing my brother to go find my parents. I didn't tell them what he said and in hindsight I definitely should have. I was terrified all of Easter because I was scared this man was actually going to come to our house. So, creepy man in the bowling alley. Let's never meet again. How not to make friends with new neighbors. So I know I said I had never had anything happen that wasn't really creep-worthy. However, I had dinner with my dad recently, and he reminded me of this story. We were relatively new to the neighborhood at this time, having only lived there for a few months. We were getting to know people on the street, but we weren't super close with any particular family. I was 12 or so at the time, and my brother was 4. Now this happened on early Easter Sunday morning. This is important. My room had a huge window right next to my bed, so my dog loved sleeping with me. He was a very docile dog, rarely ever barking or making a fuss. I woke up that morning very early in the morning to him growling. I looked out the window and didn't see anything, so I assumed all was well and tried to go back to sleep. My dog, however, kept growling louder until he was finally barking like a maniac. Like big "fuck you" barks. That's when I realized there were 2 men in my driveway, climbing up the front stairs to our doorway wearing all black. My father came barreling into my room and screamed at these guys through my window to get the fuck off his property, and asking them who the fuck they thought they were creeping around our house so early in the morning. One of them responded and my dad couldn't really hear them. He yelled at them again, and finally he understood what he was saying. "It's Sam and Joe. We're being the Easter Bunny." Sam and Joe were a father and son from down the street who liked to put flower bunny prints on people's driveways and front walks, leading to a basket of candy at the doorway for any children in the home. They didn't inform us they were going to be skulking around our house early in the morning, which thus led to my dog flipping out. They did it every year I lived there, although I think they stopped once my brother turned 13. They are a really great family, and my dog never barked again. I just wanted a chocolate bunny. When I was about 6 years old, Easter was rolling around and I really wanted a chocolate bunny. I asked my dad to take me to Rite Aid to get me one and he said he was busy, so I told him I'd just walk and he said that was fine because, honestly, he was a pretty shitty parent. So I embark on the 1.5 to 2 mile walk through rural Louisiana to the store. Houses are pretty sparse. I come up to a 4-way intersection and can see the store in the distance. As I approach the 4-way, I see a small green truck which I think was a Ford Ranger. There is 2 men in it and the one in the passenger seat is blatantly pointing at me repeatedly and they are both looking at me. I was about to cross through a parking lot on the right side of this intersection when I see this truck whip into it and park between two other cars. I then see the passenger jump out of the truck and crouch down with his fucking hands out, trying to hide between their truck and a vehicle they parked next to. Thankfully, an older woman that used to babysit me when I stayed with my mom filled my young head with a bunch of stranger danger propaganda. I immediately flipped the fuck out, bypass the parking lot, and break out into a dead sprint to the Rite Aid. Once inside, I began to pace around the store a little bit and try to calm down. I took a glance through the glass front door and see the fucking truck with the two guys in it parked right in front of the Rite Aid. At this point, I knew beyond all doubt what was going on. I asked the old lady at the cash register if I could use the store's phone to call my dad, and she said the phone could only be used to call 1-800 numbers for some reason. I burst into tears and start getting hysterical, and the manager comes to the front and lets me use his cell phone. I get in touch with my dad, who sent my brothers to pick me up, and by the time they got there the green truck had left. No one fucking believed me. They nonchalantly just said, "So what happened?" Something about a kidnapping, and I told them what happened and everyone just kind of brushed it off and it was never talked about again. Shit makes me furious to this day. I wonder what the hell those scumbags were planning. And the thing that troubles me the most is that they could have gotten some other kid on some other day and done God knows what. So, wannabe kidnappers in the green truck, I hope you get buried alive. Let's not meet. When I was 5 years old, a man tried to kidnap me, so it's Easter Sunday and my cousins and I are becoming antsy in anticipation for the egg hunt. In order to hide the eggs, my tia, Tio, and my older cousin, 20 at the time, offered to take the children to the playground while the rest of the adults hide the eggs. After almost 20 minutes, my abuelo let out his signature whistle, which let us know it was time to return to the pavilion where my family was located. After my tia did a head count to assure we were all accounted for, my tio and cousin said that we were going to race back to the pavilion. As I was running through the hedges in last place, a man who resembled the kidnapper in Dennis the Menace jumped up out of the bushes and grabbed me. At this point, I was winded from the race and I was scared. I remember looking up at the man to see if it was one of my older cousin playing a trick on me, and how scared I was when he looked down at me and said, "I'm taking you to your mommy. You wouldn't want me to make her cry, would you?" As soon as he said that, I began to scream and kick at him. Luckily my tia was not far behind me and noticed the commotion and began to scream and run towards me. My tio must have heard my tia scream as well, because by the time my tia reached me and pulled me away from the man, my tio was there almost seconds later. My tio began to chase the man through the wooded area near the playground, but unfortunately the man got away. To this day, I still have nightmares about that day.